we're going to try to make this quick because it was a long program and we did a lot this year. We taught in 3-hour days instead of 2.5-hour days, and that extra time enabled us to get everything in. Normally we cut something, like this year we won't do recorder or we won't do ukulele. Last year I think we actually cut singing. This year we did everything and more. So kids, without further ado, would you please up and to your buttons. So this part is where we teach rhythm and drumming, and those of you who aren't used to this might want to plug your ears. It's okay, we won't be offended. It does get kind of loud. But we learned 3 basic grooves, and we're going to try to show you at least 2 of them to the best of our ability. Aaron, you going to join us, buddy? Come on. There, Doc, you going to slow down right here? Okay. Everybody ready? Okay. We're going to start with the 5 ones. Okay? We're just going to show that first. 1, 2, ready, and. Now we're going to do a difficult one that involves keeping time with one hand and drumming with the other. This one's a lot harder. Okay, so they're counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and like that. Let's see if they can do it. Here we go. 1 and 2 and here we go. And good job. All right. So this year we taught ukulele as well, although we're going to be skipping that segment this morning. I wanted to show you very quickly that what we learned on that were 2 very important chords, F and C7. And for any of you musicians out there, you know that F and C7 are 1 and 5, and 1 and 5 can play a lot of songs with just those 2 chords. So this was teacher Laura Willingham's part, and she did a great job with us, and we learned a song called Go Tell Aunt Rhody. And if you don't know the song, go tell Aunt Rhody, go tell Aunt Rhody, go tell Aunt Rhody the old gray goose is dead. Okay? And she died in the meadow. She died in the meadow. She died in, no, not the meadow. She died in the mill pond, standing on her head. So, we have a little skit that involves, well, that. All right, go ahead, guys.
One morning on Aunt Rhody's farm, something strange happened.
He's not moving. Maybe he's playing dead.
Louder.
Nope, he's just actually dead.
Like forever, ever?
Yes, forever, ever.
The animals were shocked. Someone had to tell Aunt Rhody.
Johnny, go tell her.
Why me? She cried last week and potato got squished.
You're the only one who knows how to knock on the door.
Good morning, Johnny. What's the news?
The goose is no longer with us.
What? Did she run away? Join the circus?
No, she honked the last honk.
No! Not Goosey McFluff. She was my favorite goose named Goose. Goodbye, Goosey. You were loud, you were messy, you bit the mailman, but we loved you.
Can I have her nest? Can I have her snacks?
Too soon.
And so the old goose was gone. The laughs, those stayed forever.
Check, check. Okay. while they're getting their recorders, I want to just go over that the reason we teach recorder is because it's a very important instrument. People today think of it as a toy because it's taught in schools, but it's never been a toy. The recorder is over 900 years old with 900 years of recorded literature. And it is a very versatile flute that can actually play. It can play chromatically, which means it can play all the notes on the piano keyboard, all the white ones and the black ones. Most flutes can only play either the white ones or, even worse, just 5 of the white ones. Okay, but this one can play 12 per octave for a total of 27 notes entirely. So it's a very, very versatile instrument. And, they're all ready to go. Okay. So we learned a little song called I Have Lost the Closet Key. It's a little 3-note song. It's a children's song that you play a game with, but we're not going to show you the game. And I just want to point out that even though this is a 3-note song, this is probably the best recorder performance you will ever see from this group because they are nailing it. And 2, and ready, and go. Now we're going to get to our singing portion. This was, again, Teacher Lara's portion. She picked us 3 great songs. We learned one called This Is the Day the Lord Has Made, not the one we just sang, different one, a little more sprightly and fun. But we're going to skip that one this time for the sake of doing our 2 strongest ones, Kyrie eleison and This Land Is Your Land. Yes, This Land Is Your Land, which it seems fits a little bit in with our service today, doesn't it? While they are getting set up, let me tell you what you are seeing. So years ago, when I used to teach bells here, I used to just draw the music onto a paper sheet, and I used to just have to sit in front and point at the notes with the drumstick. And it was a very limited experience. You couldn't only play a couple notes at a time at best. And then I took a small programming course at Cabrillo College, and I learned how to make a little sheet here. Now what this is it's a sheet of music that kind of just falls like Guitar Hero style, okay? And there's a little blue bar at the bottom that's transparent, and when the notes hit the blue bar, they ring. Bingo. You can do a ton of music this way, and it's really fun. All right, so we're going to play a piece of music called Land of the Silver Birch.
Today's reading is taken from the 8th chapter from Deuteronomy, verse 3. He humbled you by letting you hunger, then by feeding you with manna, with which neither you nor your ancestors were acquainted, in order to make you understand that one does not live by bread alone. Does that sound familiar? Remember, Jesus says, too, when he was tempted by the devil, he says, one does not live by the bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. Jesus was quoting from Deuteronomy. The word of God for the people of God.
Thank you so much, Reverend Song, for inviting me today. And I enjoyed so much the music. Thank you, kids. It was beautiful. And I've enjoyed the piano as well. I'm from Temple Bethel in Aptos, so just 5 minutes down the road. And we have so much in common. As Reverend Song mentioned, what Christians call the Old Testament, we call the Torah. And so we're sister religions, and we have the same foundation, the same origins. And our group is part of something called the Dayenu Circle, which is an environmental group that churches and synagogues and mosques and all kinds of temples are a part of as a fellowship to protect the environment together, because the earth was created by God, and we are charged with protecting it, with being stewards of the earth. So we invite you, we encourage you to also join the Dayenu Circle. And as you probably know, the Torah was originally written, the Old Testament was originally written in Hebrew. So are you ready to learn a little bit of Hebrew today? Yeah. So I'll do a little bit of Hebrew with you. But first I want to tell you about some kids that I worked with, especially one boy who was about to have his bar mitzvah. Now, when a boy turns 13 in the Jewish faith, he learns how to read from the Torah. And in our synagogue, boys and girls, as they're turning 13, they learn to read Hebrew, and then they read from the actual scroll of the Torah in Hebrew. So as I was preparing with this boy, and he was learning Hebrew, he was feeling very skeptical. And his Torah portion was Noah's Ark. And he, at first, refused to have a bar mitzvah because he said, these stories are not true. So he was just being really stubborn. And he said, was Moses a real person? Or are these Bible stories just fake stories? So he refused to have a bar mitzvah, but eventually he said, well, he would do it, but his parents were making him. And I loved this kid. We had some really good conversations. He was like Karl Marx. He said, religion is the opiate of the masses. And I got a chance to really disagree with him there, because my religion does not soothe me. It's just the opposite. Like so many religious people, I am an activist because of, and not in spite of, my religion. And every story, whether it is historical truth or not, it must ring true on some level, deep within, or else it would not remain a story for thousands of years. No one would continue telling it if it didn't resonate. So I was sitting there with this bar mitzvah boy, and I was helping him learn to chant his Torah portion from Noah's Ark. And I'm listening to the Hebrew, and he is chanting what God tells Noah. The end of all life has come before me, because the earth is full of the violence they cause. And here we were, my student and I, and that year there were massive storms. There was flooding. Do you remember that flooding in Paro Valley? It was biblical proportions. And there were droughts, and then pandemics, and fires, and wars. And I'm listening to him chanting, the end of all life has come before me because of the earth is full of the violence they cause. I'm just listening to the Hebrew and I almost started crying because it was a little too true. The end of all life stands before us. Our children today have to live with doubt about whether humanity is capable of making the tremendous shift necessary to avoid climate catastrophe. And this is an unfair burden for kids to bear. What do we expect, that they're going to build an ark like Noah and start again with just a remnant of life? It's only logical to question whether there's anything that can be done to raise human consciousness to the point that we will actually reverse our march toward climate catastrophe. Trying to solve the world's problems can feel like pushing a revolving door, with people on the other side pushing in the wrong direction. But progress has always been 2 steps forward and 1 step backward. We have to address the human causes of climate change. But working for change can feel demoralizing and exhausting at times. How do you find the strength to keep pushing that revolving door? Well, as we did before, let's all take a deep breath. And let's look to each other for a second. Everyone just look around and see that you're not alone, that you have allies here, and that we can do this. We can be part of the change that needs to happen. And a spiritual practice can offer us a wealth of resources to help us carry this burden without despairing. Without despair. Because though we have problems in our world, it remains a world full of inspiration. And many of you come here every Sunday as a reset, a sacred time each week for inspiration from the Bible. So let's look at the Bible here. We'll look into a little bit of Hebrew. We read from Deuteronomy 8:3, and it says, "One does not live by bread alone. Lo al halechem levado yichyeh ha'adam." So Adam is Adam, the first human. And it comes from the word Adamah, which means soil. It means the earth, the soil. And then lechem, bread. Lechem means bread. And then levado means by itself or by himself, from the word levad, which means alone. So lo al halechem, lechem means bread, levado, by itself or alone. Yichyeh hadam, does humanity or does one live? And there are at least 3 important messages here. The first is that lechem, bread, meaning the material world, is never going to fully satisfy us. We humans have constructed a world economy based on perpetual growth. The reason why we keep going for so much stuff is because something is missing. We need more. than just the basic physical necessities. Humanity is experiencing a spiritual crisis. People are scared, afraid of each other, afraid of the next catastrophe, and afraid of death. We are taught here in the United States from an early age to always pursue more and more wealth in a vain attempt to feel secure and happy. And we are trying to soothe ourselves, but we are never satiated. No matter how much stuff we have, we keep stuffing ourselves with more stuff. So much stuff, in fact, that this stuff is going to bury us. And that leads to the second lesson. We cannot insulate ourselves from the world's problems with our material goods, no matter how much personal wealth we accumulate. We are Adamah. We are from the earth. We are connected. We are not alone. We are not the only game in town. We are not levad, separated from the rest of the earth. The species we are destroying, all the other people in need, and the piles of waste we are creating with all the stuff we are consuming, we are connected to all of it. Which leads us to the third point of the teaching. One cannot live by bread alone. We need more than just stuff to sustain us. Should there be a catastrophe which deprives us of our health, our home, our income, our family, all which is the material world, all of the bread, or some physical necessity, one does not live by bread alone. And that teaches that if we have a spiritual foundation in place, we can draw on that resource in our time of crisis. And humanity is in crisis. Where do we find this spiritual resource? The wisdom and perspective we need to get through a crisis, whether it is a personal crisis or a threat to the planet? How do we right here shape the future so that we don't blow this? What we need is a conceptual shift, individually and also worldwide. How do we change our society so that we don't keep consuming to the point that we are using up all of our resources? How do we change our minds? Where is the change, the conceptual shift going to come? How do we get there? Well, let's start with Aleph. Aleph is the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet. The Hebrew alphabet, the alphabet. Aleph is used in Jewish lore to represent the universe before creation, before God's very first act. The moment before the universe was created was a moment of infinite potential, and that's the Aleph. That's what it represents, the open quality of the unknown, before we even begin to have an idea of how to move forward, where to start. The first sentence in Genesis describes the universe as tohu vavohu, meaning formless and void, just turmoil. And to me, Aleph even looks as if it's turmoil. It looks like a spinning wheel, like a pinwheel. And the tips of the letters are like arrows pointing in a twist, the chaos of unlimited potential. And Aleph in Hebrew is a silent letter. Its silence speaks to something so beyond our language and capacity to grasp that in Jewish mysticism, it's called nothing. The void that follows death, the transition state before birth. Before creation, there was absolutely nothing but God, nothing but infinity, infinite nothingness, no movement, no thing. And that's represented by the Aleph. I find it mind-blowing how in cosmology, the Big Bang theory of the origin of the universe fits so beautifully with this. The way it's explained by astronomers prior to the Big Bang, there was absolutely nothing, no matter in the universe, no time, no space, no thing. And then in one infinitesimal moment, all matter appeared at once and exploded outward, forming everything as the heat from the energy of the explosion cooled. In that case, the nothingness before the Big Bang of creation is Aleph, a potential so vast it is beyond our comprehension. And I want to suggest to you that we are right now also in the time of the Aleph. We are in the chaos, the spinning pinwheel, beckoning to us, beckoning to humanity for transformation. In her book, Miraculous Living, Rabbi Shoni Leibowitz writes about this, saying, "This is the place of the unknown that calls to you and beckons to you for transformation and spiritual growth. Whenever you move from the familiar to yet inexperienced terrain, nothingness awaits your return. In Buddhism, this place of void is the state called Bardo. Before a big change comes a conceptual shift in your mind. We have to fundamentally change our society's habits. But first, we have to change our thinking." Yoko Ono and John Lennon did a conceptual art piece once around the Vietnam War, where they had a huge billboard posted in the middle of New York City in Times Square and all around major cities in the United States, announcing, "War is over," and in parentheses, "if you want it to be." The idea is that before you can end war, you have to first imagine an end to war. So Yoko Ono, John Lennon's wife, once publicized an exhibit of her latest art at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. The people who showed up found nothing there. She didn't have one single thing in that gallery. So when people went to her and said, "What was this?" she explained that it was all a conceptual show. It was all in her mind. Although it may not have been very inspiring to the people who showed up, I've been thinking about that. The empty gallery is all potential. It's the most uncomfortable place because it could go in any direction. In a way, it is the most creative moment, the moment before you decide which way to go, when you are just empty, open to the chaos and the potential that comes with it. So I would say that Yoko Ono's exhibit wasn't a joke. It was a statement to humanity. We need to sit in the Aleph, the point before we get stuck in our mind's inability to envision humanity's potential. We need to empty ourselves, to sit in the Aleph, empty and open, and from that empty, vulnerable place, to shift our priorities, to open our minds and hearts to reimagine humanity, working together to reach our potential. There was once a Jewish scholar known as the Alter Rebbe, and he pointed out that in Hebrew, the difference between the word golah, which means exile, and the word geula, redemption, is that redemption, geula, contains the letter aleph. Otherwise, it's the same word. The image of exile is that we're stuck in Babylon, where not only our bodies, but our faith, our priorities, our values have been kidnapped. And we're trying to return to the promised land, but we never get there. How can we get there? We're stuck. How do we get unstuck? How can we get from exile to redemption? We need, first, Aleph. We need to sit with the chaos, empty and open. We have to get out of our current way of thinking. We may be resistant to take the time or even afraid to go to that empty place where we are vulnerable yet open to inspiration. And yet so many spiritual practices call us there. For example, we Jews have a fast day called Yom Kippur. We don't eat anything, and we just empty ourselves physically, emotionally, and spiritually so that we can get to that place of the Aleph, that emptiness in which we can start over. And each time we are stuck, we need to return there. And from there, just like with God in creation, may come the most small, intangible change. Not even yet an action or a thing, but a conceptual shift. And according to Jewish mysticism, in the creation story, a slight shift before creation occurs in God's consciousness. And this, in Jewish mysticism, is called Bet, the second letter of the Aleph-Bet, the second letter of the Jewish alphabet. And Bet is also the first letter of the Bible, Bereshit, in the beginning. It is open because in Hebrew we read from right to left. And so Bet is open, looking forward. It's closed back, bottom, top, but open toward the future, facing forward. It is potential. So after the chaos of the Aleph, but before you move forward, before the first step, comes this imagining and envisioning the shift of consciousness, the gathering of spiritual connection, fortitude, and strength. And that is Bet. And times like these call for this prescription. How do we avoid being dragged down, feeling overwhelmed or panicked when we think about climate change, when we think about the environmental impacts of humanity? Jewish mysticism teaches that we consciously prepare ourselves to see with new eyes, like an artist in an empty gallery. When we spell Aleph, the word Aleph, backwards, it spells the Hebrew word Pele, which means wonder, the ability to see with new eyes, to feel deeply the magnificence of each living being, each stone and molecule of creation. From this wonder can come the vision for the future, the Bet, if we constantly open ourselves to it. Bet is the gathering of energy, of spiritual resources, letting go of the past, what we thought we needed, how we thought things had to be, getting focused, unstuck, and ready to move forward. We are reminded that we have finite time here on earth, and that it is urgent that we get out of the places that we are stuck, that we get ourselves on track. This is an essential step because big problems require big strategies. When there are no solutions in sight, we need to visualize them and imagine them, and then create them from every angle, spiritual and physical. You never know, your ideas might be an essential part of the solution. Inspiration comes from our infinite capacity to see what we cannot yet see. And let's call that the third letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Gimel. So Gimel to me looks like someone with their high-heeled shoe on. Gimel is going. Gimel is moving forward, ready to go. And there's a song from Melanie D'Or called One Foot in Front of the Other. And it says, I know you're scared, and I'm scared too, but I'm right here next to you. You've got to put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. When things are not working, we need to go back to the Aleph, that emptiness, that it's a really difficult place to go to. It's scary. Most people want to avoid it. But in order to have real change, we have to go back there. We are going to have to draw on faith because we don't know yet how we will change course and move forward. But we do know that now is the time. Humanity is capable of making the tremendous shift necessary to stop impacting the earth in such destructive ways. And the future generations are counting on us. Basically, we are carrying the world on our shoulders. So this day of rest invites us to step back and recharge with ancient wisdom and new vision, and then apply that to the world of action, Aleph, Bet, and Gimel. Thank you so much.
Let us continue singing the song, God of the Sparrow, God of the Whale.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. May God's countenance shine on you and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yisem lecha shalom. May God's countenance be lifted unto you and may you be granted God's gift of peace. Shalom.
Shalom.